Okay, so for the question 4, explain what is meant by deflation and use aggregate demand and aggregate supply diagrams to explain how it might arise in an economy. Donc, le planning for this question, you will have to define deflation. And then, bien sûr, you have to take one by one, donc aggregate demand. Okay, you have to draw the diagram for aggregate demand showing deflation. And then you explain some reasons. Explain some reasons how changes in aggregate demand can create deflation. Similarly, for aggregate supply, you have to, for this one, you have to provide two diagrams. Donc, aggregate supply, the diagram showing deflation. And then you have to explain the reasons why aggregate supply can create deflation. Explain reasons how AD can create deflation. Well, this is the plan for the 4-part A. So how is it? Well, explain what is meant by deflation. Use aggregate demand and aggregate supply diagram to explain how it might arise in an economy. So definition de deflation. Deflation is defined as a situation of persistent decrease in general price level. When the rate of inflation, when the level of inflation is negative, we talk of deflation. D'accord? Donc là, small definition on deflation already given. Maintenant, you can also define AD and AS because it has been provided in the question. Aggregate demand is defined as the total demand for all goods and services in an economy, whereas aggregate supply is defined as the total supply of all finished products in a country. Donc, aggregate demand veut dire total demand, aggregate supply veut dire total supply. Donc là, small introduction, ça c'est correct. Maintenant, tout simplement, une question de 8 points. We go straight forward, we answer the question straightforward. Donc, deflation can be caused by a fall in aggregate demand as shown below. Donc là, bien sûr, comme nous pouvons trouver dans ce diagramme-là, the aggregate demand is being shifted to the left from AD to AD1. Donc là, il cause price to decrease from P to P1. Ça même, bon, deflation, c'est falling price level. So when you are done, you just explain the diagram for aggregate demand. The fall in aggregate demand from AD to AD1, as you can see here, the leftward shift, causes price to fall from P to P1. The fall in the aggregate demand causing the deflation can be caused by several factors, ou bien several reasons. Donc là, nous pouvons expliquer qui fait aggregate demand can fall. For example, for instance, a fall in money supply could lead to a fall in aggregate demand. Donc, par exemple, a contractionary monetary policy. Donc, contractionary policies veut dire c'est une policy qui peut contribute towards decreasing aggregate demand. Donc, par exemple, bon, quand on dit cause monetary, c'est un petit peu in relation to the rate of interest. Donc, a contractionary monetary policy, such as an increase in the rate of interest, is likely to encourage people to save more and spend less. D'accord? Par exemple, la banque augmente ce taux d'intérêt, donc pour encourager pour garder de l'argent dans la banque instead of spending. Also, increasing interest rate lead to higher borrowing costs, which also discourages spending in the economy. So this could be one reason why people would not want to spend and would rather prefer to save. This has an impact on aggregate demand. This will cause aggregate demand to fall. This is one of the reasons of why aggregate demand can fall. Second reason now. The fall in consumer confidence is another reason for a decline in aggregate demand. Donc, for instance, in the event of an economic downturn, such as a recession, may cause people to be more pessimistic about the future of the economy. For example, let's take the context of the COVID-19, during the pandemic and the lockdown. Donc, il y a une sorte de récession au niveau mondial. So this caused people to be more pessimistic about the future, to prepare them for any unpredicted economic situation that could arise. Donc, in order to prepare themselves for the future, they will want to increase their savings and reduce their spending. D'accord? Donc, this is the level of confidence in consumer. Donc, here, providing two reasons is enough, parce que là, vous avez déjà expliqué le dessin. D'accord? So, you can take a screenshot of the page and then I move on. Donc là, c'est que la moitié de la question qu'on a parlé là. We talked only about AD. Now we will go and talk about aggregate supply. Voilà. These are the reasons for the aggregate supply, aggregate demand. Allez. An increase in aggregate supply is also likely to cause deflation as shown below. Here we see that prices are falling as a result of an increase in aggregate supply from AS to AS1. D'accord? As the prices increases, the price will fall. As the aggregate supply increases, the prices will fall from P to P1. So the increase in AS from AS to AS1 is likely to cause prices to fall from P to P1. Similarly, ici c'est the increase. Similarly, the increase in aggregate supply can be caused by several factors. For example, a fall in the level of production costs, lower production costs through a decline in the price of raw materials or inputs, will encourage producers to increase their production, c'est-à-dire to increase their output, leading to an increased supply in the economy, causing aggregate supply to increase. This could be one reason. Also, when you have more technological and sophisticated machineries, etc., an increase in technological advances will allow producers to lower costs, thus causing prices to go down. So these are the two possible reasons why aggregate supply can increase, thus causing deflation. D'accord? Donc ça, c'était la première partie. C'était une question de 8 points. Okay. So the part B, discuss whether the government should use monetary policy or fiscal policy to solve the problem of deflation in an economy. A continuous fall. Donc bien sûr, you have to tell the examples of monetary policy that we will be using and as well as the types of fiscal policy that will be used. Donc avant tout, you have to give a small introduction. For your essay, it is 12 marks. Donc, a continuous fall definitely is detrimental to an economy in the long run. This is why it is important to adopt the right policies in order to mitigate the adverse impacts of deflation. Donc là, in order to boost aggregate demand, an expansionary or reflationary monetary policy can be implemented. Maintenant, you have to go and explain each types of policy, fiscal and monetary, and also you have to provide at the end, you have to apply and provide a small justification. D'accord? Donc là, par exemple, you can explain, donc, monetary policy, you explain monetary policy, it revolves what is the monetary policy. Donc, what is monetary policy? So it involves government spending in relation to the rate of interest, etc. And then you will have to say what are examples of expansionary policy. So what can the government of a country do to adopt monetary policies? Donc là, for example, the government can lower the rate of interest. For example, central banks can lower the rate of interest. Okay, can lower the rate of interest. This would cause people to save less and spend more in the economy. Thus causing aggregate demand to increase and causing price to increase as well. When aggregate demand will shift to the left, prices will increase. So prices to rise. Donc this is the first thing. Après, pour rate of interest même, you can say that le contraire de ce qu'on avait dit en haut. En haut, on avait dit que increasing the impact of increasing interest rate. Donc ici, vous allez mettre the impact of lower interest rate, so the lower cost of borrowing. Okay, so people will be like to spend more, thus again having a positive impact on aggregate demand. Ça c'est pour monetary policy. Donc saving rates also can be fallen. Okay, quand même lower rate of interest. Donc interest you have different types. All these you can reduce it. You have saving rates, you have mortgage rates, you have rate on business loans. Donc l'intérêt il passe partout. It can be saving rates. It can be mortgage rate, which has to be decreased, or it can be loans, interest on loans also, which can be decreased in order to encourage people to spend more. We also have devaluating the exchange rate. Okay, so devaluating or depreciating the exchange rate in order to make the good appear more cheaper. So devaluating exchange rate. When you devaluate exchange rate, what will happen? Devaluation of exchange rate, c'est-à-dire we cause the value of the product to be more, to be cheaper as compared to imported product. Donc, thus people will spend less on imported product and will spend more on local products, so that aggregate demand will increase again. Donc, this was a reflationary or expansionary monetary policy. Next, we have to adopt fiscal policy. Fiscal policy, the government can increase government spending, increase its spending on investment. Okay, increase its spending on investment, public healthcare, education, encouraging foreign direct investment. Also, we have fiscal policy. It revolves around taxation. You can reduce the level of tax rate. Okay, reduce taxes. Reducing taxes, VAT, value added tax on, for example, on products such as food product, commodities, etc. This will cause people to spend more because they will have higher disposable income to spend. So an expansionary fiscal policy will cause aggregate demand to increase because people will spend more in the economy. Ça, c'est fiscal. Maintenant, ces deux types de policies-là, bien sûr, quand vous avez fini d'expliquer, ça même vous allez avoir 2 ou 3 paragraphes déjà avec votre introduction. Là, vous allez devoir expliquer whether it is correct, whether a government should use only that to solve the problem of deflation. Là, il faut se rappeler que monétaire avec fiscal, quand nous pécose monétaire et fiscal, nous pécose plus, ce sont des policies qui peuvent affecter only the aggregate demand. Il pas pour affecter the aggregate supply. So these fiscal and monetary policy, we call them demand-side policies. Okay, they are called demand-side policies. Why? Because they will influence only the demand side, the aggregate demand. They won't influence the supply side. Donc là, we have to go and evaluate whether it is. What are the we can talk about the problems related to each types of policy. Okay, so let's go and check the types of policy that we can have. So this was the example of fiscal policy and monetary policy that we implemented. However, the effectiveness of such policies is often questioned. Donc, et la fois, ça ban policy là, c'est une ban side effects. Okay, donc it can be viewed in other way at times. So là, on a déjà vu que vous avez déjà expliqué. Now you will put another paragraph. Donc this will be your first one, small introduction. You will explain the types of monetary policy that you will be using. Example, how will it affect aggregate demand, thus improving the level of reducing the deflation and increase and causing price to rise. Then fiscal policy, vous allez parler sur government spending, increasing government spending on investment, reducing taxes, causing disposable income to increase and causing people to spend more. Donc là, vous avez déjà expliqué. Next, you will have to go and explain about the effectiveness of the policies. effectiveness of both policies, whether they are effective in the long run, or whether they will correct this problem of deflation forever. So right now you have to go and explain that however, the effectiveness of such measures can be influenced by, for example, the time factor. Ça prend du temps. C'est pas aujourd'hui, nous payons inflation, et c'est que le gouvernement vient nous payons deflation, et c'est que le gouvernement vient augmenter l'intérêt, everything is fine. So it takes time to implement. So effectiveness will depend on several factors on the time factor. Okay? For instance, at times when you have to regulate spending quickly, donc ça n'est pas une grande inflation, n'est pas vraiment effective. Vous savez comment dire, le gouvernement vient et commence de in term for fiscal, par exemple, le gouvernement n'est base tax. The base tax and c'est good. This can have it can raise AD by too much, causing adverse effect. Okay, les gars commencent cause trop beaucoup d'inflation and c'est good. So at times it is not very effective, especially for the time factor. Après, also, it takes time to implement. It takes time to implement, for example, changes in the rate of interest. If the central bank, for example, want to cause the rate of interest to fall, then this will have the effect is here. So I will write it right now. It takes time. Okay, so in order to remedy one problem, we can get another issue, which in the long run might not be that effective. Okay, so the time factor at times it's not always effective. Next, we have political issues. Okay, political issues. So government sometimes avoid using some measures such as fiscal measures or even monetary measures, especially when elections are near, because they feel that they might lose votes. Okay, so for political reasons, at times they wouldn't want to change fiscal policy or even the monetary policies. Okay, so this is due to some political reasons. Après, c'est aussi we have also several types of uncertainties. Why? Because taxation and exchange rate, as well as rate of interest, they are very volatile. D'accord? Donc, il est un petit peu unstable. For example, decrease in the rate of interest is expected to decrease the level of savings. D'accord? However, there is no guarantee that this will happen because savings itself, it can be influenced by many factors. Donc, il y a beaucoup uncertainties that happen. So savings, it can be influenced by many other things. Pareil, par exemple, moi réduire income tax, me dire 10 moun pour the disposable income pour augmenter, je pour spend more. However, if the people are pessimistic about the future, they will want to save more instead of spending, malgré income tax in baissé. So we have several uncertainties which might make both policies ineffective. Though uncertainties I will write, for example, a fall in income tax, with the aim of increasing aggregate demand might not work or might be useless, might not work if might not work, especially if people are pessimistic about the future. So it depends on several factors also. Pareil comme savings. Pas qu'à dire mo baisse interest rate, peut-être di moun pou arrête save pou spend. Savings also it can be influenced by many other factors. This is why we have some uncertainties whenever we implement these types of policies. D'accord? Donc là, you can give three factors which can make them ineffective, and then you explain comme j'ai mis là. Et puis, bon, bien sûr, we have seen that in the long run, the demand side policies are kind of ineffective. So this is why we can adopt some other types of policies which are known as supply side policies. D'accord? Donc supply side policies, these are policies which will tend to increase the aggregate supply in the economy, as well as, bon là nous inquiétons un petit peu comment nous pouvons mettre an aggregate supply in order to boost the economy. Okay, so you can take the screenshot here and then I'll continue. Okay, so here again you can take the picture. Donc then dernier paragraph you can explain that supply side policies is likely to reduce deflation in the long run to reduce deflation in the long. For example, donc là, bien sûr, you have to give an example. We often talk of supply side structural reforms in order to improve the efficiency of the economy, increase productivity, which help to raise prices. Donc we can say that government can implement supply side structural reforms in order to improve the efficiency of firms as well as increase productivity, as well as increase productivity, and this will have as impact thus causing prices to increase. Voilà. So these types of question you have to debate a bit, donc providing the explanation, and then là bien dire que whether it is correct, if it is not correct, or if it has some limitations, what should be done in order to counter these limitations. D'accord? So I think if you have missed something, you can take a picture, and then we move on to the question 3. The question 3 is on elasticity, I think. Yeah. Allez, let's look at the question 3. Donc, question 2 avec 4, on a déjà travaillé. Question 3. So question 3, explain how the concept of cross elasticity of demand can be used to distinguish between goods that are substitutes, those that are complements, and those that have no relationship. So this is very easy question. It's a question which can bring someone full marks. Donc premier, we have to go with the plan. So the question of 8 marks is really straightforward here. Donc tout simplement, you will have to go and define what is the cross elasticity of demand. You can also provide your formula here. So what is XCD? You provide the definition, then you provide the formula. Et puis, tout simplement, you will go and start explaining the substitutes and what are the relations with the XCD. D'accord? So we'll work that in some minutes. I will give you the planning first, and then I'll explain. Okay, so the cross elasticity of demand. So firstly, you have to define your XCD. So cross elasticity of demand can be written as XCD. So you define plus you provide your formula, and then you go and start explaining what are the relation between XCD and substitutes, relation of XCD and complements, and when there are no relation at all, what is the value of the XCD? Comment on va distinguer? Allez. So XCD, the definition. No, definition usually say it shows the degree of responsiveness. It measures the degree of responsiveness in the quantity demanded of a good when there is a change in the price of another good. So this is the definition. So XCD equals to percentage change in the quantity demanded of good X divided by percentage change in quantity demanded of good Y. This is the XCD, and this is how it works. Maintenant, you will go and explain about the nature of the two goods. For example, for the XCD, now we go and explain XCD and substitutes. What are the relations? Donc substitute, they are goods which are competitively demanded. Si moi envie N, moi va pas envie l'autre. Okay, substitute. So here you can say that for example, the XCD is usually positive for substitutes, meaning that if the price of one good increases, okay, demand for the other will also increase, and vice versa. You can, and vice versa. Donc let's take the example of two of two goods which are complement. So you can provide an example. For example, if, for example, tea and coffee are substitutes. Either you drink tea or you drink coffee. You cannot drink both at the same time. So tea and coffee are substitutes. If price of tea increases, bien sûr, if price of tea increases, what will happen? Quantity demanded of tea will fall. Donc, the law of demand, the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. So if price of tea increases, quantity demanded of tea will fall. Now, what will happen? Si di moun pa pe consume tea, ki pa revise pou consume plus café. Therefore, quantity demanded for coffee will increase. This is why we say that there is a direct relationship. So we say that there exists a positive relationship between the price of one substitute and demand for the other substitute. Demand for and quantity demanded for the other. It reflects on the sign of the XCD. Maintenant, you can also say if there is a high degree, donc if the competition between them is high, there's a high degree of substitution, then the XCD would be elastic. Okay? And then if the degree of substitution is low, then it will be inelastic. D'accord? Donc, if degree of substitution ou bien competition is high, then we say that XCD will be high, ou bien we say it will be highly elastic. Le contraire, if it is low, the sign will always be positive. If the degree of substitution is low, then the XCD also will be low, inelastic here. C'est-à-dire, if the price of good X increases for high degree of substitution, the quantity demanded of good Y will decrease by more than proportionate. This is elastic. Il peut augmenter pas direct, il peut augmenter pas beaucoup. However, here, if price of X increases, it will increase by less. It won't increase by that much. Tous les deux, il peut increase même, showing the direct relationship between the price of one substitute and demand for the other. The only difference is that the one there will be a more than proportionate change, and the other there will be a less than proportionate change. This is for XCD and substitute. Now we look at subsidy and complement. So here the XCD will be negative. Then you explain two goods are complement. The relationship say if the price of one increases, price of one good increases, demand for the other will fall. You can provide an example. For example, if let's take two complements that are consumed together, car and petrol, for example, car and petrol. Donc là, if the price of petrol increases, if price of petrol increases, I'm not talking about electric cars, only car using petrol. If price of petrol increases, what will happen? The quantity demanded of petrol will fall. Quantity demanded for petrol will fall. And the quantity demanded for non-electric car, those who need petrol, non-electric car, will also fall. So here we say that the price of one good will increase, the demand for the other will fall. So the price of petrol in augmenté. What happened? Demand for the complement, this has fallen. D'accord? So here we say that there exists an inverse relationship between price of one complement and demand for the other. Donc pareil, if the degree of complementarity is high, we say that XCD is elastic. If it is low, we say that if the degree of complementarity is low, we say that XCD is inelastic. Maintenant, pour la dernière partie de la question, qu'est-ce qu'on m'a dit? Goods that have no relationship, but goods who have no relationship, they will be perfectly cross-inelastic. Okay, veut dire that this situation implies that the two goods are not related. So you can screenshot that. So when the goods are, for goods that have, comment on avait posé la question? That have no relationship, donc XCD will be 0. Then we say that demand is perfectly cross-inelastic. So this implies that the goods have zero relationship, or the goods are not related at all. Voilà, you don't have to provide any diagram for this one, just have to explain. Bon, là, quand vous allez expliquer pour complement and then for a bit for no relationship, you will get a 1 page and a half, and it's okay for 8 marks. Good? Okay. Now let's continue the part B. The part B also is on elasticity. An economy is experiencing a fall in average income during a severe recession. D'accord? Donc income is falling. Discuss the extent to which the concept of YED, income elasticity of demand, and PED might be useful to an entrepreneur in this economy, and consider which would be more useful. Okay. Okay, so I hope you have already taken that. So, donc ici pour la question, la dernière partie, la question de 12 points, we have to provide an evaluation for income elasticity of demand and price elasticity of demand. Ok, donc for the question 3B, donc là on va devoir parler sur income elasticity and price elasticity. Donc before starting, so the question is, we have to explain to what extent are the concepts useful to the entrepreneur. So firstly, we'll define the YED. Donc ici c'est pas nécessaire de provide formula. Okay, you just define your YED, donc income elasticity of demand. It reflects the degree of responsiveness in quantity demanded as a result of a change in income. Ok, maintenant PED aussi. Ok, donc ici aussi pareil, it measures the degree of responsiveness in quantity demanded as a result of a change in price. So here you have provided the definition for both the YED and the PED. Maintenant, on va partir voir on the importance of YED to the entrepreneur. Donc, vous allez parler sur YED avant. Donc, in order to, donc, what is the objective of an entrepreneur is to maximize his profit or his revenue. So, in order to maximize his revenue or even profit, the entrepreneur, donc là, on est quelque d'une situation que in a recession, in a falling income, entrepreneur should adopt the right decisions pertaining to price, production, as well as non-pricing measures. This is quite logical. This is the aim of entrepreneur. This is what they have to do. They need to come with the right decision, the right policies. Donc here, in knowledge of OID is very helpful. Donc là, for example, suppose, in this case, we are talking in the question, we are talking about a recession here, n'est-ce pas? Oui, recession. So, for instance, during a recession, you apply the question. During a recession with, as mentioned in the question, with falling income level. Okay. For an entrepreneur who is selling a normal good, Donc là, if the demand for the good is income elastic, this would imply they have to produce less in order to, because there will be a lower demand. Selling normal good will have to reduce its production because there will be a fall in demand selling normal goods. Not only normal and luxury aussi, because people's income are falling. Would they spend on these types of goods? No. Donc, an entrepreneur qui peut produce, it will have to reduce his production. Okay, since there is likely to be a fall in demand, because we have situation, we are talking about the situation of a recession where income level are falling. D'accord? Donc bien sûr, il peut besoin réduire sa production. Ok là. Maintenant, similarly, quand on peut causer une récession, if we have entrepreneurs selling inferior products, they will tend to be favored, because whenever we have low falling income level, so then people will tend to buy these inferior products. So examples of inferior products, we can talk about outdated clothes, second-hand clothes. Okay, we have different types of inferior goods that people won't be buying if they would have, for example, si they tiennent better money, etc., they would not have bought it. But inferior product, it is usually cheaper. So when people income are falling, they will tend to buy more inferior products. Maintenant là, normal goods, those, fait comment dire, banane fini commence produire normal goods déjà in supply. Donc là, ce qui se passe, in order to make their product to be sold, qu'ils sont capables de faire, c'est capable d'adopter une stratégie, comment, price reduction, etc., to attract customers. Okay, for entrepreneurs selling normal goods, strategies, parce que si les peut sell normal good, ok, si les peut sell normal good, people are not buying, donc ce ban goods pour rester comme ça même. So what qui est capable de faire, puis capable encourage, c'est capable d'adopter une stratégie. Donc in order to sell for these entrepreneurs selling normal good, strategies could be implemented, such as price reduction, parce qu'ici il n'est pas fait sa bande d'affaires, personne ne peut pas acheter ce ban produit. Donc ce revenu même pour baisser, or attractive sales promotional measures, or bien discount or whatever. Sales promotional measures can be adopted in order to attract customers. Okay, as an extreme measure. En fait, comment dire, la vente, 10 000 pas bien acheter même un normal good luxury good. As an extreme measure, the entrepreneur can even curtail his production. Curtail here means reducing its production and its storage levels if sales are low. So now we are talking about luxurious goods or even normal goods. However, still in the case of a recession here, sellers or bien entrepreneurs, producers of inferior goods, however, will tend to be favored, okay, and hence these producers will witness high sales during a recession. So here we have explained for the why. Let's get back. Let's read the question again. Donc, to which extent is the concept of YED PD useful to entrepreneur? Okay, donc here we have already explained for the YED. Now we have to explain for the PED. So we have to explain the importance of the PED to the entrepreneur in production and whether it helps the entrepreneur to Now we talk about the PD. So a knowledge of PD is also important. A knowledge of PD is equally important. To the entrepreneur. For adopting the right pricing strategy. Okay, look, PUDOC is very important. So for example, if demand is elastic, then a reduction in price can cause a more than proportionate increase in quantity demanded. Okay, a reduction in price can cause a more than proportionate increase in quantity demanded. Therefore, it will tend to increase the revenue of producers. Donc là, la question nous dit que here we are talking about a recession. So, to what extent, let's get back to the question. And consider some would be in economy and consider which would be most useful. So here we're talking about average incomes. Okay. Donc là, we have already written if demand is elastic, a reduction in price can cause a more than proportionate increase in quantity demanded. Donc là, if we are talking about two competitors who are competing against each other, donc the one who reduces their price will get more customers. Donc vous avez un petit coup, what are what are other producers, other competitors doing also. Donc, for example, if demand is elastic, a reduction can cause ça. Thus, consumers with falling income will definitely buy the cheaper product. So the business whose prices are high, they will witness a falling sales because consumers will not want to buy their product. Donc maintenant we have also if, for example, if demand is unit elastic. For example, if demand is unit elastic, a change in price would not influence revenue because the quantity remains basically more or less the same. A change in price would not influence revenue. Okay, in such a case, the entrepreneur can adopt measures in order to boost sales, measures such as sales promotion, small discounts, additional gifts, etc. Okay, or even advertising, etc. Mais ici, advertising, yes, it could be useful. Well, so it depends on the elasticity. So here we can see that it makes more sense when the better concept here is definitely the income elasticity of demand, because here we are talking about falling income level to some. Okay, YED it's more related to whenever you're talking about a recession. However, PED also is important, but in this context here, we have YED, which seems to be the better concept. D'accord? Donc, après, we can also say a notion of PED can also be helpful in situations if cost of production increases. Okay, if demand is elastic, donc usually quand cost of production is increasing, qui arrive, producers they are tempted to zone tendance augmente prix of the good. If the demand is elastic, producers, the entrepreneurs will face a fall in quantity, a fall in demand if they raise the price of the good. Well, okay, so this is a bit how the concepts of YD and PD can be useful to entrepreneurs or producers, okay, in a country. D'accord, so you can take that, take the screenshot, and then on va faire la dernière partie. La dernière partie, c'est un petit peu application. Okay, you have to justify which one is better, or even give a justification or a small recommendation if you want. So take the screenshot and then we continue. And the concluding small paragraph. Both concepts have their importances, have the importance or usefulness. However, the income elasticity, bon, it measures the change, it measures the degree of responsiveness as the definition. Je peux get in terms plus de income ici, parce que la question, because de la question, on parle de falling income level, donc un petit peu plus. But, however, the income elasticity of demand can prove to be more useful than the PD, than the price elasticity of demand. Also, other concepts can be used, such as you can also such as the cross elasticity of demand. And then if you're talking about producers or entrepreneurs, we can also talk about the price elasticity of supply, because we're talking about production here. On a dit the context too. We have to say whether they are important to producers. Entrepreneurs, they are producers. We have to talk about the supply, price elasticity of supply. It is important. Bon, ces concepts-là, we have to calculate. So it is important to ensure that the different, so these concepts, how do we get that? We have to calculate them. However, it is important to ensure that the different concepts have been appropriately calculated. This is one thing. We have to ensure that it has been appropriately calculated. And also, with time, the value tend to change. So we have to be updated with these values. The value will change. For example, if we talk the PD of a particular good of Mauritius in 2020, on compare ça avec 2022, ben normal que ça va, the value will change. Ça va changer. So we have to be updated. We have to be in line with this. Maintenant, let's reread the question si on peut ajouter quelque chose. The concept which will be more useful. Yes. As an entrepreneur, you cannot just focus on elasticities. As an entrepreneur, you should also be in line with strategies that competitors are using. Bon, il dit que les compétiteurs ne peuvent pas calculer les charge and prix, ben un charge and prix qui des fois moins. Donc c'est normal que he will lose in terms of sales. So he has to be in line with the strategies, the pricing strategies, or bien even non-pricing strategies that his competitors are doing. D'accord? So this is my answer for this part. Donc, vous avez pu prendre ce qu'il y avait en haut. You can take this paragraph, this small concluding paragraph. For your evaluation, you get around 2 to 3 marks. Okay, and these which were above, you get 4 marks each. Depends on how much you have written. D'accord, donc pour ce type de questions-là, c'est pas nécessaire de mettre les graphes. Okay, it is just notes. It is just written. Just have to write the notes and explain very well. Ok, voilà.